Hello and welcome to the Kim Iverson Show. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a new show time for those who are just tuning in for the first time. We were at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Now we have moved the show as of yesterday. Yesterday was our first day on this new time to 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. So we hope that you continue watching. We hope that many of you were able to catch the live show when previously maybe it was a little bit too late for you. So thank you so much for being here, and we hope that you guys stick around. This show is about really just exposing all of the madness that's going on in the government and just in the world around us, from the dystopian ideas that the elites have, like the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset programs, COVID mandates, covered that quite extensively. Hopefully we never see those again. CBDCs, corruption, all of that stuff. So that is where you could find it. That's the type of stuff that we talk about here on this show. So we really appreciate you tuning in and being here. So let's start off with Elon Musk. He says he's aspirationally Jewish. He tells us to Ben Shapiro during his, what I call, "Don't Cancel Me" tour. Let's start off with Elon talking at what they're calling an anti-Semitism symposium. Elon Musk traveled to Poland. He was invited to Poland to tour Auschwitz. Ben Shapiro went with him. This comes after months of Elon Musk being accused of being an anti-Semite. He had made some comments on X that people didn't like, or he retweeted things, or he made comments under other tweets. And so he was being accused of being anti-Semitic, and it caused a massive problem for Twitter/X and their bottom line, their revenue. Companies started canceling their advertisements and saying, we don't want to be associated with an anti-Semitic run website. You're not doing enough to curb hate speech. You've got all these anti-Semites on your platform. That is all ramped up even more with the war in Palestine, where there's a lot of people who support the Palestinians and who believe what the Israelis are doing is wrong. And so that type of rhetoric can be viewed as hate speech. And so there's a big push to get Elon Musk on the side of Israel. So I call this the "Don't Cancel Me" tour, because he's basically saying, look, I'm on your side. Don't mess with my company now. Don't come around and cancel all the ad revenue and tank. He bought Twitter and it was a lot of money. The thing was upside down financially. It not necessarily the best investment. He says he did it really because he wanted to promote free speech. But then here we are. Now X is talking about censoring, and we're going to get to that. But first, let's play this clip. After the tour of Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro, they did this anti-Semitism symposium. He sits down with Ben Shapiro and has a conversation. They show a film. They give Elon Musk an award. But this is one of the things he said that's been trending online. He says he's aspirationally Jewish, that his name is basically Jewish, that he feels Jewish. Watch this.
Yeah, I grew up around a lot of Jewish people. I went to Hebrew preschool, Rachel Spiro in South Africa. My name is very Jewish.
I will tell you that for the past 10 years, people have assumed in my community that you were Jewish until I informed them otherwise.
Yeah.
Elon is a pretty Jewish name.
He's super Jewish.
Yeah.
And then I went to Israel when I was 13. Visited Masada. I'm certainly checking the boxes on a lot of things. Like I said, most of my friends are Jewish, just worked out that way. So sometimes I guess maybe I forget. Am I Jewish? I'm Jewish. Aspirationally Jewish.
Oh boy, really pulling everything out there that he can in order to not get canceled. Don't get canceled. After he toured Auschwitz, some of the things that he did say, he said it was incredibly moving and deeply sad and tragic that humans can do this to other humans. Excuse me, I didn't turn off my volume. That is the first step of being live on air, is silence your devices. So I wasn't paying attention. Okay. He said after touring Auschwitz, it was incredibly moving and deeply sad and tragic that humans can do this to other humans. He says, I'm still absorbing the experience. It's going to take a few days to settle in. He also placed flowers in remembrance of the victims. He showed up there with his son, and I believe Grimes. I think I saw her in one of the videos that because That's his kid, I believe, with Grimes. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's the one with like looks like a math equation for his name, or like a physics equation. He went on to say, well, actually, let's just get on to what he actually says in this anti-Semitism symposium with Ben Shapiro. First of all, before the symposium really started, or at the very beginning of it, they showed a movie. We're going to show a little bit of it in this clip, and showing would there have been a Holocaust had social media existed during World War II. And they also present Elon Musk with a trophy or an award of some kind made out of a rocket that they say was fired at a kindergarten by Hamas. None of the children died, but just watch this whole bizarre thing.
Before we start, I just would like to express gratitude and appreciation to Mr. Musk for taking the time to join us today. In our times, we seek to see more friends. And we were appreciating very much the time you took to be with us today. And as a token of appreciation for taking the time to be with us today, if I may present something to you, please. Please. This was made out of a rocket. A rocket that fell on a kindergarten in Be'eri in Israel. And it was a miracle that kids were not killed during this when the rocket fell. It's an artist, Israeli artist by name Yoron Bob, who take this artist and use it in order to show a message how even rockets could become a symbol for never again. Thank you very much. It's quite heavy.
What in the holy hell is this? I mean, they're giving him a rocket. And it's saying that this was fired on a kindergarten by Hamas. It says never again on the top of this. Very bizarre, considering that in Palestine, in Gaza, the children could only be so lucky. They're being targeted with rockets by Israel, and they're not making it out alive. That's the difference. The kindergartners they've got in Israel, the Hamas rockets are not as powerful at all as IDF's artillery. They're small in comparison, homemade. They often don't do a ton of damage. People do get killed, and it is extremely, extremely tragic. I definitely think anytime civilians are killed, it's wrong. We shouldn't really be having war much anymore at this stage in society and civilization. But nonetheless, how odd to present Elon Musk, who makes rockets on his own, by the way, but to go and tour space, to give him a rocket from Hamas but watch what he does with it. It's interesting that they give this to Elon, but he doesn't actually, kind of holds it for a second, but then he gives it back and he doesn't actually take it. Let's keep watching this.
If I may just, it's written here, presented to Mr. Elon Musk in January 2024 in recognition and appreciation of your fight against anti-Semitism and to mark your visit to Auschwitz from the European Jewish Association. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, it was an honor to walk with you today at Auschwitz. It's actually my first time there as well.
Sorry, maybe just have a very short video to present first, and then we
sure,
start.
go for it.
I apologize. Mr. Musk, when we were walking around Auschwitz together earlier on today, I couldn't help ask myself if the horror of the death camp could have been possible if social media was around in these days. After the Holocaust, one of the most heard sentences was, "We did not know." Today, everything is in public. Everybody is a journalist or eyewitness. Please watch how it could have been used. You have it in front of you, sir.
Okay, so this part of the film is silent for the most part. And they're just showing right here on the screen in this video, they're showing if social media existed during that time, during World War II, during the Holocaust, would people have been informed of it? And then would they have stopped it? Like, look at this one saying, "I can't believe what I just saw. The Nazis told the Jews to go inside the synagogue, entire families, infants in their mothers' arms," right? They've closed the doors and the windows, metal bars, and then they set it on fire. Oh my God, the world must know. Or here, I had the honor to help liberate prisoners. So they're going and showing what maybe the messages would have been if the Holocaust were happening today. Again, the irony of this, considering that this is exactly what people are doing in regards to what's going on in Gaza, but it's just lost on them. So we'll keep watching here.
Millions of lives. I remember you saying AI is potentially the most pressing risk to humans. I must tell you that there is a clear and present danger of a different AI. This is anti-Semitic incitement. This is why I really wanted you to be here with us, Elon, because this AI ended up fueling the ovens at Auschwitz and powering the trains and took the cattle trucks of Jews to be murdered.
So, this is what people are doing today. He's trying to bring up social media. If it was around during the Holocaust, people would have known, people would have maybe stopped it, people would have been outraged. It would have been no different than what is exactly happening right now in Gaza. People are seeing what's going on in Gaza. They're outraged. They're saying, you cannot do this. It doesn't matter what your justification is. The Nazis thought that they were totally justified. They thought that they were saving their society, that they were preserving their culture. They thought that they were ridding their society of a group of people who they believed was going to destroy their way of life or backstab them. They blamed the Jews for World War I. There was a whole host of reasoning in their mind as to why they were doing what they were doing. They weren't just, oh, we're evil people, so that's why we're doing what we're doing. We know it's wrong, but we're doing it anyway. Everybody always has an excuse, and they certainly had an excuse and reasoning in their mind. And there were some that said just genocidal stuff. We hear that coming from Israelis often, genocidal statements from even their highest level politicians making genocidal statements. And then there are those that say, well, no, we just have to do this for safety. There's those who don't make the genocidal statements, but they still excuse what's going on in the massacre of civilians and the massacre of civilian life, the ethnic cleansing that is going on in Gaza. They say, well, but we have to. What other choice do we have? These people want to kill us. So there's always an excuse. And so people are on social media right now. They're using X on social media, and they're exposing what's going on in Gaza. We're seeing the images in real time. We're seeing the reporters being killed at the highest rate we've ever seen reporters killed. We're watching men being rounded up naked and marched along, images that look identical to the Holocaust if you just put them in black and white, which somebody did, actually put those images in black and white and fooled their entire audience saying, these are images from the Holocaust. This is nothing like what's going on in Gaza. And people were saying, oh, yeah, exactly. These are much, much worse. And it was actually the exact same photos coming from Gaza. They just had changed them to black and white. So we are seeing what happens when social media exists during the time of an attempted genocide. We're watching that happen now. And people are saying we have to stop this. And I'm sure that the social media campaign is forcing Israel to be surprisingly and unbelievably more measured. Doesn't seem like they're very measured at all, but I'm sure they're being even more measured because of social media. So it's interesting that he's trying to say, well, social media could have saved the Holocaust, could have saved the Jews of the Holocaust, it could have prevented the Holocaust, and then not realize that that's exactly what's happening right now with the Gazans. And that's what the Gazans have been relying on. And that's why journalists are being shot dead and bombed and targeted by the IDF, because they don't want them to be displaying everything that's happening on social media. This is also why they're bringing out Elon Musk, because they know the power of social media. They know the power of people seeing these images of an entire nation of people being destroyed in Gaza. People are seeing this with their own eyes, and then they're being told, don't believe it, but we're seeing it. And then they say, don't believe it. And so what they want is Elon Musk to be on their side so that he will censor the content, so that he will prioritize the pro-Israel content and maybe downplay the Palestinian content and what's really going on in Gaza. That is why they're just doing this full court press with Elon. It's not just, and Elon's doing it, I think, in my opinion, mostly to ensure that the crazed, the cancel culture, the crazed cancel culture doesn't come after him and ruin his business that he's, let's just kind of walking a tightrope with X right now, business-wise, and he doesn't want them meddling with it, canceling him, calling him an anti-Semite, and turning everyone against him. The way, I was just going to say the way that they did with Kanye West, but Kanye said a lot of crazy stuff. So, a totally different situation. But, it can be career ruining. If they do say that you are an anti-Semite, even if you haven't made anti-Semitic comments, but they're interpreting the things you've said as anti-Semitic, then yeah, I mean, it could be career ruining. It could be business ruining, empire ruining. So Ben Shapiro and Elon Musk then go on to have a conversation. And let's watch this first clip of him responding about college campuses. So here we go.
I think we really need to stop this principle that the weaker, normally weaker party is always right. This is simply not true. If you are in quotes oppressed or the weaker party, it doesn't mean you're right. Because if some of those, weaker groups want to annihilate you, that does not make them good. We have to get rid of the rule that if you're weaker, you're automatically good. That's obviously makes no sense. It often makes sense where it's like, okay, you don't want to beat up on someone smaller and weaker than you, but if that smaller group wants to kill you, they're bad. Okay. I'm a big believer in moral absolutism, not moral relativism. There's good and bad in the absolute, and you judge any group or individual against absolute moral standards, not whether they're the so-called oppressed or oppressor, just on absolute moral terms. Are they doing good things? Do they want to murder innocent people? That's bad. It doesn't matter who they are.
You would think, but the pseudo-sophisticates on college campus seem to think differently. And so I wanted to get your take on why you think this is so prevalent on college campuses. What do you think the future of the universities in the United States looks like, given the fact that entire universities appear to have been corrupted by moral relativism and this sort of perverse ideology? Do you think that a wave of change is coming to the universities? Do you think that there's going to be direct hiring out of high school? What is the solution for universities in the United States as well as abroad?
I think we need to return to where things were, or mostly were, which is a focus on merit, and it doesn't matter whether you're a man, woman, what race you are, what beliefs you have. What matters is, how good are you at your job, or what are your skills? You could be a three-legged green Martian, wears a kimono and drinks yak's milk. Who cares? It doesn't matter. What matters is how good is your work. That's it. That's the least sort of racist, sexist you can be. Is just care about the work that somebody does and not anything else. That's what the focus needs to be to return to.
Yeah, it seems as though you mentioned earlier the sort of problems of attacks on the meritocracy.
So he starts off and he says, the smaller group is not right just for being the smaller group. I agree first of all, I agree that universities, we need to get back to a meritocracy. It really does need to be, if you do great work, then you get the job. It doesn't matter what color your skin is or whatever your gender is. That it shouldn't be based on, are you trans, are you in some sort of oppressed group, and so therefore we're going to give you an opportunity even though there's better candidates, or we're seeing all these kinds of strange things in the news, like the FAA is going to hire people with severe disabilities, including mental illness, and that they're opening up these options for them. And look, if they can do the job, if the person does the job, maybe they have things that they suffer from in their personal life that isn't really out there and debilitating. That's one thing. But to do it just to do it in order to kind of appease this DEI culture that we have, it's totally insane and wrong, and it's going to lead to destruction. And it also doesn't fundamentally create a society where, a really competitive society in the world. We're going to just be outperformed by China, India, all these other countries that don't focus on kind of this woke ideology. So there's that. Okay, sure. But in the beginning he says a smaller group isn't right just just because they're the smaller group. Just because they're the weaker group, it doesn't mean that they're right. That's true. I mean, you look at ISIS, you look at Al-Qaeda, these are very small groups. I don't think anybody thinks they're right. Even though they're small, I don't think people are siding with them and thinking, oh, yay, yay, these terrorist groups because they're small and they're oppressed. I think that some people will say, well, they have a point. We shouldn't be in their country. We shouldn't be on their land meddling. And maybe we would prevent terrorist attacks on us if we were to not be on their soil, just like we don't want them on our soil. That's for damn sure. But I don't think that the college campuses are necessarily protesting on behalf. Now, they do this often. It's true that young people are spirited. Young people like to be champions and heroes. They like to champion causes and help people. And it's just almost ingrained in young people to want to even out society. Sometimes they're wrong. But it's up to those of us who have a brain, those of us who are independently thinking, those of us who are more logical, to assess when they're wrong and when they're right. They're also not always wrong. So you've got Ben Shapiro here, who believes that college kids are pretty much fundamentally always wrong. Anytime there's a protest on a college, he thinks, oh, these kids, they're stupid. They're just woke. They're just falling into DEI ideology. He believes that just carte blanche, they're wrong. Because they're protesting, because they're saying, hey, we want to equal out society, or we don't want this wrong to happen. That's just as wrong as the ideology of just because they're weaker, they're right. They're smaller, so they're right. If you automatically always believe because a group is weaker, they must be correct, that's obviously not true. There are often times when a smaller group is not correct. But if you also are the type of person who believes just because a college student is who you don't agree with most of the time is protesting, therefore they're always wrong, and you just take the stance of I just can't agree with whatever they say. I just don't agree with college students. It doesn't matter. You don't take the time to be an independent thinker and actually assess it for yourself and say, well, maybe this time they're right. And with these kids protesting for Palestine, they see the social media. They're looking at the bombing. They're looking at the children. They're looking at the women. I haven't heard a single protester. There definitely, we hear people talk about they're defending the right for the Palestinians to push back. They might be on the side of Hamas, let's say, because they believe that it's a resistance fighting group that is trying to liberate the people. I think it's very complicated. I do think that's one aspect of Hamas, sure. But the other aspect of Hamas is it's a very religiously conservative political organization that I think most Palestinians don't want to live under that type of governance. I think it's very similar to ultra sort of Bible Belt Christians that a lot of Americans don't want to live under. But if they're the ones defending you in that moment, if they're the only ones stepping up and helping you, let's say, defend the southern border, then you're going to support them and say, well, they're the only ones actually doing anything. I guess I'm going to support these people. But what the college students have been protesting is clearly the right for the Palestinian people to not be oppressed any longer, the right for Palestinian people to have equality on the land and to no longer, or to have their own nation, either equality on the land or have their own nation. But I just find it interesting that, even though Ben Shapiro is trying to push that, just because they're small doesn't make them right, at the same time then says, because they're college students, they're just wrong. Point blank. It doesn't matter what, they're just woke, they're falling into DEI, they're just always wrong. And it's because he doesn't agree with them this time. So Elon Musk really placates the crowd here and talks about Gaza indoctrination. Watch this.
How do you think that people ought to pursue that? Because obviously we have seen indoctrination at a wide variety of levels, ranging from sort of soft indoctrination in various schools in the West to very, very hard indoctrination that you see in, for example, the Gaza Strip, where kids are literally, unfortunately, at very young ages, they have graduation ceremonies that we've seen tapes of where they're reenacting kidnapping of Israeli soldiers or killing of Israeli soldiers, for example.
That fundamentally has to be addressed, or there will not be peace. The education of kids in Gaza, the indoctrination of hate into kids in Gaza has to stop. So when I was in Israel, I was like, that was my top recommendation, is like, you've got to make sure. I understand the need for this to invade Gaza, and unfortunately, some innocent people will die. There's no way around it. But the most important thing is to ensure that afterwards, that the indoctrination where kids are taught from as soon as they can understand language that their goal is to kill Israelis. And if you're told that from when you're a toddler, well, you're going to believe it.
I mean, it goes both ways, right? It's the people in Palestine, the Palestinians are under severe oppression. And of course, they're going to hate the people who are oppressing them. I think that's just a natural human feeling that I don't even think they need to be taught that. If a child sees growing up that they're not given equal rights, that they're having to live with guns in their faces, constantly checking them, making them go through checkpoints, making them late for their doctor's appointments or for their jobs or for their school classes, or throwing their friends in jail on suspicion of some terrorism and holding them for 30 days just because they're young teenagers, it's just going to breed hate. You don't even have to indoctrinate them. When I was over there in the West Bank, nobody said anything to my group of people. We were just taken places all around to fun things like floating in the Dead Sea, riding camels. We went into Tel Aviv, into Israel. We did a lot of really fun things. And then we also just were experiencing the occupation. Nobody had to say anything. When you experience it, you grow disdain for the people who are doing it to the people who are under it. That's just a natural human emotion. It's despicable and it's disgusting. And when you experience it for yourself, you walk away angry. So the people that live there, and I was only there for a week, the people that live there every day, day in and day out under this, of course, are going to grow angry. That's just natural. You don't have to teach it in schools. But it goes both ways. We've seen plenty of videos of Israeli children being taught the same sort of vile hatred towards the Palestinians, basically saying that they're on their land, they shouldn't be there, that they've got to go. And we hear this rhetoric coming from even the political class. So again, even if it's not taught in schools, those Israeli children are going to grow up into adults listening to their politicians who say, this land is our land, this land is not your land, get off, we don't want you here. And they're just going to experience that. So it goes both ways. But, that's Elon Musk's kind of pilgrimage to, his advertising pilgrimage that he was doing in order to save X. That's my opinion of what he was doing. I don't know how genuine. I'm sure there's some genuine feelings. I think many of us feel genuinely sympathetic, of course, about the Holocaust, and that sympathy is often being played on. It's being used. It's being exploited because we do feel bad about what happened. And so then it's, well, then because you feel bad about this one event that happened to us that was really atrocious, then you have to do all of these, you have to agree with us with absolutely everything we want to do, even when we want to do something really atrocious. It's being exploited, that sympathy. And so I think that Elon Musk, I'm sure, has genuine sympathy. I have sympathy for the Israelis that have to live under the rockets, but I do have more sympathy because it's exponentially worse for the Palestinians who are not only living under rocket fire, but actually being bombed and killed as a result of it. But that's, Elon doing his advertising film, saving X, making sure. And so that's what he did. He's still over there, and we'll see if more happens from this. We'll see what sort of reaction there is from this tour that he's done of Auschwitz and this anti-Semitism symposium that he was a part of. Let me show you this. This came out then yesterday, the same day that Elon Musk goes and does this tour. X then releases this kind of memo that they put out there saying that they're wanting to safeguard information independence and combat hate speech, specifically anti-Semitism. This is what the whole press release said that was released by X yesterday. Faced with the option of future dependent on gatekeepers and moderators that restrict the free flow of information or a world where information flows freely, I choose information independence. Here's why. So that sounds good. She's saying, I choose information independence. Here's why. So that's what we all want, is information independence. As someone whose career was built around entertainment and news organizations, I know the impact information can have on communities and culture. Joining X has been liberating because it's a place for everyone to freely be themselves. That freedom and society's progress requires information independence. The free exchange of ideas, information, and knowledge through freedom of speech. To drive humanity forward, society must empower people to express their thoughts, make up their own minds, but also draw the line at hate. Okay, so this is where we start to derail. So information independence, we're all on board with that. But then it's like, well, to drive humanity forward, we must empower people to express their thoughts, make up their own minds, but also draw the line at hate. This is tough to do, but absolutely crucial. Yeah, you know why it's tough to do? Because what is hate? I hate Twitter. I do. I hate Twitter. I hate X. I go on there, but I hate it. I don't think it's a good place. Sometimes, it's good for some things, but I think it does rile people up. I think it's kind of like Mean Girls in high school sort of a thing, and I don't like it. Now, am I going to be banned because I hate Twitter? I hate X? Am I allowed to say that? What is hate? Who gets to decide what is appropriate hate and what is inappropriate hate? So are we not allowed to hate at all anything? Can you not hate dog poo on the side of the road? I mean, who gets to decide what hate is allowed? Because certainly some hate is allowed, right? She goes on to say, some people believe that they have complete information independence. They don't. Information independence is under threat. Heavy content filtering practices of some platforms and media entities have altered people's understanding of the truth, and we're seeing things we held as true being openly challenged. Control, censorship, and information centralization holds us back, while greater access to information propels us forward and fuels positive change. People want and need unfiltered, accurate information to make their decisions. That's why everything X does is in service of our ultimate goal, the relentless pursuit of the truth. Getting there means providing a platform for all ideas to flourish, where everyone, communities, creators, or businesses can freely express themselves without censorship. It also means granting equality of access to that information to everyone for free. Accurate and unbiased information will power a competitive economy and unlock greater innovation. Okay, sounds great. No censorship, relentless power of truth. Everyone gets to share their idea, freely express themselves without censorship. Sounds great. Consider this. In the last year, there were more than 1 trillion impressions around conversation about the global economy, freedom of speech, immigration, education to elections, and more. The benefits of these conversations are staggering. That's also why we've also committed to accuracy and have expanded our community-led approach with community notes to address misinformation with more than 375,000 contributors across 65 nations. Okay, fine. That's fair enough. I do think, though, that community notes should be opened up to everybody, like Wikipedia. You could create a Wikipedia account and you could put in information. It gets fact-checked by other people, but you're able to do this. Community notes shouldn't be, into this small group of 375 contributors. For all the good, there's also a point when information independence crosses a line too. Uh-oh, here we go. So it sounded good, but now here we go. For all the good, there's also a point when information independence crosses a line too, and that's hate speech. Again, with hate speech, what is hate speech? We must all act now to combat hate, as Elon firmly stated during the European Jewish Association Symposium. Oh, that's the official, that's what they're calling it, not the Anti-Semitism Symposium, but same thing. Sadly, since the October 7th terrorist attack, anti-Semitism and hate speech have accelerated in the world. Hate speech completely corrodes our society. It divides people and threatens the very order that affords us the lives we have. It's all our duty to combat hate speech in our communities and on every platform, because freedom of speech and safety can and must coexist, and the future of democracy and the global economy depends on it. So we all have to act now to combat hate speech, she says in this memo. Again, what is hate speech? Saying Palestinians should be free from the river to the sea is considered hate speech. Saying that Palestinians and Israelis should live together in a state that probably will no longer be called Israel, but just the Holy Land or Canaan or whatever you want to call it, and they all live together with equal rights, because there are 50% of the people living on that land right now are Jewish, 50% of the people living on that land right now are Arab. Technically, more than that are Arab, because a lot of Jews are actually Arabs. They just call themselves something different. I think it's like Mizrahi Jews or something, that are technically from these more Arab, they immigrated in from Iraq, and they're Iraqis and they speak Arabic, but they try to speak Hebrew most of the time now. So there's, there would be a lot of Arab people living there. There would be a lot of Jewish people living there. They would live there all together. That's considered hate speech to even call for that, like a one-state solution. So it goes on to say, X is doing its part on all fronts as we build an indispensable global town square, so everyone has the ability to connect, debate, share information, and soon transact. We're equally strengthening our efforts to combat hate and safeguard marginalized communities. Last year, we removed millions of pieces of content and suspended just as many accounts that violated our terms of service, including violent speech and hateful conduct policy. Okay, that's fair. It's fair if you're calling for, it's fair when the idea becomes action. So if you're bullying somebody, truly harassing them, let's say, that's something different than having an idea. Ideas should never be, and opinions should never be censored, no matter what the opinion or the idea is. She says, we've opened more lines of communication with groups dedicated to the safety of communities, both in physical and virtual spaces, and we'll keep going. This is not a check-the-box exercise for any of us. Combating hate is a lifetime dedication. You're never going to get over hate. I hate this memo. What are you going to do about it? Our mandate at X is clear. We must protect free speech, safeguard information independence while tackling anti-Semitism and hate speech. Why is anti-Semitism called out on this? I've seen just as much hate towards Muslims, towards Palestinians, towards the people who support Palestinians, being called terrorists, being people very violent and hateful speech. But why is the focus just on anti-Semitism? Why do they get their own special word? Why is there not a special word for the Palestinian people who are being hated against? Through our collective technologies and human potential, we can create a safer and more inclusive environment for everyone, giving way for information independence to be a force for good. It won't happen overnight, but we must start now. No, you don't. You don't need to be censoring hate. Let's make up our own minds because we can handle the truth. Yeah, we can handle the hate too. Grow up. We're adults. You can handle the hate. Just ignore it. People hate me all the time. You have to just learn to ignore it. People hate on the road all the time, right? What are we going to do to combat road rage? What are we going to do about that? Oh, it's a big problem. People getting really mad. People getting really mad when they're driving down the road. We have to do something about it. I mean, that's how silly this is. It's as silly as trying to combat road rage. Hate is a human emotion. You're allowed to have it. You should have it. There could be things that you're allowed to hate. You should be able to hate. Who gets to be the arbitrator of when hate is okay and when hate is not okay? So she said, let's fight hate with kindness and understanding. That's true. We should teach people don't hate so much. It's not healthy to be a hateful person. It's not healthy to hate. You should try to be more understanding, try to be kind, but that shouldn't come in the form of censorship. I'm going to censor your hate. That's only going to create more hate. You think that's going to work? So she says, let's do it all together. X indispensable. I hate this. I hate this. I hate that Elon Musk is now kowtowing to a particular group of people who are very loud and very demanding and and retaliatory against him and against the company. That's really what's going on. This is just trying to calm a group down that's highly retaliatory. And then the problem with this is, you've got all these groups that say, well, Jews aren't in power. There's no conspiracy of Jewish power. But then when these types of things happen, people start to question that. And they start to say, well, I don't know. I mean, what is Elon Musk doing for the Palestinians? I mean, how powerful are they? Are they so powerful that they're able to intimidate X into going with their narrative or else? I mean, what other group have trans activists been able to do that? Are they so powerful? These trans groups, are they so powerful that they're able to come along and basically strong arm their way into ensuring that people go along with their narrative? We have seen some of that, and we don't like it. Right? We see that happening in certain communities where they are powerful, but overall, not very powerful because there's a lot of communities that won't accept that. So when one group of people, it feeds the idea when a trans group, for example, is able to strong arm a community into doing whatever it is that they want for their agenda in that moment, even if the people don't really want it, that would be wielding their power in a way that fuels the conspiracy or the idea, not a conspiracy theory, but the true conspiracy that, they're trying to indoctrinate our kids. See, look at this evidence of it. So when these Jewish groups or people who support these Zionist groups are saying, hey, we don't want anti-Semitism on this platform, and we are going to strong arm you, we have the ability to strong arm you, all it does is feed fuel to the fire of there is a group that tends to have a lot of power. That how do you then say, no, it's not true when this type of thing happens? To say, well, no, they don't have a disproportionate amount of power when they're able to strong arm entire platforms into touring Auschwitz, sitting down with Ben Shapiro and saying, yeah, I agree. I'm Jewish. I'm basically Jewish. Uh, and then having the company issue a memo saying we're going to fight anti-Semitism very specifically, not calling out all the other types of hate that are flourishing on the platform, which people should be allowed to express. So it definitely causes a lot of people to think and to be more suspicious. But here we are, needing to be censored, needing to be silenced because we don't want to get canceled. That's what it boils down to. All right, guys. Let me guess. Your medicine cabinet is crammed with stuff that doesn't work. You still aren't sleeping. You still hurt and you're stressed out. That's how it was for me. So I cleared out my cabinet and reset my health with CBD from CB Distillery. And it's been a real change. CB Distillery's targeted formulations are made from the highest quality clean ingredients, no fluff, no fillers, just pure, effective CBD solutions designed to help support your health. In 2 non-clinical surveys, 81% of customers experienced more calm. 80% said CBD helps with pain after physical activity, and an impressive 90% said they sleep better with CBD. So if you struggle with a health concern and haven't found relief, then make the change like I did to CB Distillery. And with over 2 million customers and a solid 100% money-back guarantee, CB Distillery is the source to trust. Now, I have a 20% discount to get you started. Just visit cbdistillery.com and use the code Kim for 20% off. That's cbdistillery.com, code Kim, for 20% off. And that link is down below. All right, let's talk about the New Hampshire primary. Nikki Haley has won 100% of the votes cast in the New Hampshire primary so far, believe it or not. Now, it's not a lot of votes. I got to give you the caveat here is that this is a small town called Dixville Notch, which is about 20 miles from the Canadian border. They have a population of 6 people. They vote at midnight. They've been doing this since the 1950s. They vote at the strike of midnight. All the people in the town, all 6 of them, get together and they vote. There's 2 other towns that used to join in on this, and all 3 of them in New Hampshire voted at midnight, very tiny towns with just a few people. But the other 2 did not do it this year. Maybe they caved to the Democratic Party. I'm not really sure what exactly. They actually cited saying that it was cumbersome because of new rules and regulations. But this town, Dixville Notch, had 6 people, and those 6 people go and they vote. Here is the after the vote, it was announced by media outlets. All these media outlets were jammed into the room, and they were all covering this event. You know, it was a big event. The 6 votes. How are they going to vote? And Nikki Haley took all 6 votes. As Haley wins Republican primary in Dixville Notch, New Hampshire, the state's first town to vote. Nikki Haley 6, Donald Trump 0. Ugh. Nikki Haley then tweeted this out. A great start to a great day in New Hampshire. Thank you, Dixville Notch. And that was in response to reporter Tim Callery saying, it's a sweep for Nikki Haley. All 6 votes go to Team Haley. Those voters, it was 4 of them were are registered Republicans. 2 of them are registered independents. And for whatever reason, they all went for Nikki Haley. I don't know. Either they really hate Donald Trump or they just really love war. I mean, it's one of the 2. You either you must hate Donald Trump more than you don't like war, because Nikki Haley's a major warmonger. So Dixville Notch, just kind of explain why they do this. This started back at one of the towns started doing this back in the 40s. And really it was to accommodate rail workers. So the rail workers have to get up really, really early in the morning and they're on the road the whole time. And so in order to accommodate this particular group of people who were getting up early and wouldn't be around to vote, they started doing this at midnight. Dixville Notch, shortly after the other town did it, started to do it, and it's just held on for decades. They've been voting at midnight, and this year it gave Nikki Haley the big boost. So let's just hope that that this isn't a precursor for how the rest of the New Hampshire primary is going to go tonight. We'll definitely be keeping a watch on it, but Trump is expected to win. Nikki Haley is expected to perform quite well. My guess is she still does. If she performs well in this New Hampshire primary, she's not going to back down from the primary. In fact, the next state is South Carolina, because that would be her home state, right? And so maybe she expects to win that one, and then I think maybe she's expecting to have sort of the runaway train effect like Joe Biden did after South Carolina. So Um, Bummer. I don't know what else to say about that, but all 6 of them went for Nikki Haley. Oh man, we're doomed. We're doomed as a people. We're doomed as a society. Sorry if you like Nikki Haley. I don't know. Tell me why you do. I'd love to hear from you. Kim at KimIverson.com. Email me why you love Nikki Haley. I'm sure one of you watching right now must like her, right? Tell me why. I would love to hear the reasons. All right, let's move on to the rest of the primary. So the Democrats are not having Joe Biden on the primary, but there's actually a fake robocall of Joe Biden that has been circulating around New Hampshire telling Democrats not to vote today. The New Hampshire, they've got this. So this fake robocaller is saying, what a bunch of malarkey. It's important that you save your vote for the November election. It says voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump. Your vote makes a difference in November, not this Tuesday. And then the message concludes with a phone number belonging to Kathy Sullivan, who's a former New Hampshire Democratic Party chair, who now runs a super PAC supporting the campaign to urge New Hampshire Democrats to write in Biden's name in the primary. Why do they have to write in Biden's name? Because he's not on the primary ballot. Why is he not on the primary ballot? Because the DNC tried to strong arm New Hampshire into giving up their place as the first primary in the nation. And New Hampshire gave them the middle finger and basically said, we're not going to do what you want just because you're afraid that Joe Biden is going to be embarrassed. Now, why would Joe Biden be embarrassed? Because back in 2020, he was the supposed front runner, but during the New Hampshire primary, he ended up in a embarrassing 5th place. Remember, that's where he called a woman a lying dog-faced pony soldier. It was in New Hampshire. So he ended up skipping New Hampshire the last primary. He didn't stick around for his own campaign party. He instead just went straight to South Carolina. What Democratic Party didn't want to see was another embarrassment for Joe Biden. There are 2 other people on the ticket. There's Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips, and they didn't want to see Joe Biden. And at the time when they were trying to pressure New Hampshire into moving past South Carolina to moving their primary date to later and allowing South Carolina to go first, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was also running as a Democrat. And they were really afraid that Joe Biden would just end up defeated and embarrassed in this primary. So New Hampshire said, we don't care what you think. We don't care. It's called democracy. We have to allow a vote. We're the first in the nation. It's per our Constitution. And we're doing it. And if your candidate is piss poor and nobody votes for him, not our problem. It's called democracy. Take it or leave it. So New Hampshire defied the DNC. In fact, the DNC did all kinds of crap to New Hampshire, trying to get them, really trying to strong arm them, trying to push them around. They used all kinds of tactics, I suppose, to get them to push it. But they didn't. So then after New Hampshire said, no, we're still going to do it. In fact, New Hampshire sent a cease and desist to the DNC at one point, saying, stop telling people that our vote doesn't matter. Stop telling people that voting in the New Hampshire election doesn't matter. Because then the DNC took to another tactic. When they realized that New Hampshire wasn't going to do what they wanted, that they weren't going to play ball and push their primary till after South Carolina, they started to move to other tactics, which is basically smearing the election in New Hampshire, saying it's worthless, that it's meaningless, that it doesn't matter, saying democracy doesn't matter in that state. Here's the Democratic Party, the group that says that they're protecting democracy, saying we don't care about democracy in New Hampshire. It doesn't matter there. It doesn't matter. Your vote doesn't count. And so the Attorney General actually sent a cease and desist to the DNC and said, shut up. Our votes matter. This is democracy. You will stop saying that. So they've had this row between the DNC and New Hampshire. Now there's this robocall. So then the DNC realizing, oh crap, they're going to do it anyway. We've tried everything. They then started to push for a campaign because they'd already missed the deadline to have Joe Biden's name on the ballot. That was one of the moves, the power moves that they tried to make in order to get New Hampshire to kowtow to their desire, was by removing Joe Biden, not putting his name in. And New Hampshire said, okay, then we're still going forward with the Democratic primary. His name's just not going to be there. So then the DNC said, well, then crap, we got to work on getting his people out to write in his name so that he doesn't look like an idiot and he actually wins this primary because they're going to go for it anyway. And that has been their campaign of late. But now there's this robocall going out saying, don't go out and vote. Don't vote. It doesn't matter. Your vote matters later. Now that's under investigation by the state of New Hampshire. Is the Attorney General's office is actually investigating this caller. If it likely came from Democratic operatives, maybe not the DNC itself, but maybe a super PAC that's affiliated that went around making these robocalls. But it is illegal. It's an unlawful attempt to suppress. It's voter suppression. So whoever's behind this is going to hopefully pay a price. You're not supposed to be doing this. So now there's two people tonight on the ballot, Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips. In fact, let's look at the other two candidates, because in New Hampshire, unless you're going to write in Joe Biden's name, you've got two options tonight. Let's take a look at these two options. Here's what Marianne Williamson had to say yesterday about today's primary in New Hampshire.
Hi, I'm Marianne Williamson, and I'm running for President of the United States. Why? Because I'm the one who will beat Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not a traditional politician, and a traditional politician will not defeat him. We're going to defeat him with an energy as bold as his is, but an energy that's a vision of possibility for the average person, the working people of the United States, which should be the unequivocal advocacy of the Democratic Party. We're going to offer tuition-free college and tech school, Medicare for all, subsidized child care, tuition-free college, and a guaranteed living wage, a guaranteed sick pay. We're going to turn a war economy into a peace economy. We're going to turn the scourge of addiction into the gift of recovery. And we're going to turn a dirty economy into a clean economy. There has been a 50-year war on the middle class and the poor in the United States. I'm Marianne Williamson. We're going to end that war. I'm going to make sure of it.
All right, so that's one person you can vote for tonight. Let's take a look at the other candidate. This is Dean Phillips. I think he jumped into the race kind of later. Marianne's been in it from the very beginning alongside Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and then RFK went independent, and then Dean Phillips jumped in. He is backed by Bill Ackman. Andrew Yang likes him. He also encouraged Marianne Williamson to drop out of the race so that Dean Phillips was the only one. Marianne said, no, thanks. That's not going to happen. But let's take a look at your other option tonight. If you happen to be living in New Hampshire as a registered Democrat, let's take a look at what Dean Phillips has to say.
Well, tomorrow's the big day, January 23rd, the first in the nation primary right here in the Granite State. And I've spent the better part of the last 3 months with so many of you, Democrats, independents, Republicans, libertarians, and I just want to say thank you. It's been a remarkable experience. You've been so hospitable to me, to my family, and to my staff. And that's something I'm never, ever going to forget. I also won't forget the conversations I've had with so many of you, your concerns and your challenges, starting with costs. I know that healthcare, unaffordable if you even have insurance, which is why we need a national health insurance program, something like Medicare for All, so that every American has their healthcare covered and we have mental and emotional care from the beginning of life until the very end. Housing, to see people sleeping outside throughout this country and even here in New Hampshire, we can fix that. We just have to build 7 million homes, and we know how to do so in America with the right leadership. And education, from pre-K through college, let's stop burdening young people with tens of thousands of dollars in debt that they can't even pay back. We got to make life more affordable for Americans, give everybody a chance. That's why I want to start American Dream accounts. We have to defend and protect reproductive rights. I believe in freedom and liberty. We've got to reduce gun violence. We got to end the opioid epidemic. So much work we have to do. We have to protect Social Security for those who are retired and have earned it, not just protect it, but enhance it. So that's what America's all about. But are we going to be able to achieve any of these things with the dysfunction and, frankly, the current candidates at the top of the tickets? No. That's why I'm running for president. I know how to do this. I'm the second most bipartisan member of the entire U.S. Congress. I came from the business world, where you could never succeed by demeaning, endangering half of your customers. You actually do the opposite. You invite people, you listen to them, you learn them, you welcome them. That's what I'm going to do as president. We're going to solve these problems by working together. I'm going to take what I learned here and spread it all around the world. The way you practice democracy, what you've shared with me, and most of all, how we're going to fix it. So if you're ready for change, I'm ready to be your president. It's a time for courage, and I hope you'll vote for me tomorrow, January 23rd. I'm Dean Phillips. Change is coming, and I think we should do it.
All right, so that's Dean Phillips. He is a congressman from Minnesota, and he's also on the ballot. So those are your two choices tonight, unless you're going to write in Joe Biden. But we will be watching tonight's primary, and then we'll just see how it goes. We'll see. We'll see. That's the best we could do. All right, guys. Stress may be why you can't lose weight. So if you have moderate to high stress, a doctor-formulated weight loss supplement called Lean could be your solution. Chronic stress wreaks havoc on blood sugar, which can cause your body to store excess fat. Stress can also slow your metabolism, which fuels weight gain. And you all know about stress eating and sugar cravings. So now the good news, the studied ingredients in Lean have been shown to help maintain healthy blood sugar levels, help optimize metabolism, and keep your appetite under control. So if your life is a bit stressful and you want to lose weight, then add Lean to your healthy diet and exercise lifestyle. Get 15% off and free shipping at takelean.com and enter Kim15. That's promo code Kim15 at takelean.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and is not a substitute or alternative for care from a healthcare provider. Well, Hamas has rejected a proposed 2-month ceasefire. Let's first look at this scoop from Axios that came out. Saying that Israel proposes a 2-month fighting pause in Gaza for release of all hostages. Israel has given Hamas a proposal through Qatari and Egyptian mediators that includes up to 2 months of a pause in the fighting as part of a multi-phase deal that would include the release of all remaining hostages held in Gaza, two Israeli officials said. They said that more than 130 hostages are still being held in Gaza. Israeli officials say several dozen hostages either died on October 7th or in the weeks since then. President Biden's advisor, Brent McGurk, traveled to Egypt on Sunday and will continue to Qatar afterward for talks aimed at making progress in the negotiation to secure the release of hostages held by Hamas. Qatari and Egyptian mediators have been trying for weeks to bridge the gaps between the parties in order to make progress towards a deal. U.S. officials told Axios that reaching such an agreement might be the only path that could lead to a ceasefire in Gaza. However, Hamas has rejected this. Hamas has said, no, a ceasefire for 2 months. So we're going to give you back all of your hostages. You're going to give us a break for 2 months where we bring in some humanitarian aid, and then you're going to continue bombarding us and ethnic cleansing us and pushing us towards the Rafah border and talking about displacing us all around the world or to Lebanon and to all of these other Arab nations. No deal. We're not taking that deal. What Hamas has proposed is a complete withdrawal of IDF from Gaza. They want to take back the Gaza Strip. They want the IDF out. They want an end to the current now occupation of IDF. And they said that is what they will agree to. The IDF has come back and said, no deal. We do not want that the idea of Hamas remaining in Gaza is not an option for us. And so basically, we're at a stalemate with this release. Now, that is the way to get the hostages back, is a ceasefire. That is clear. Hamas has shown that when they first did the ceasefire, they did release over 100 of the hostages and held on to another 130 hostages. So they've shown, and they're refusing to give the hostages back under any other circumstance other than a ceasefire. So they have figured that out. Hamas has figured that out. They're not going to ease up on that. They understand that there will be continued bombardment of Gaza as soon as Israel gets their hostages back. Personally, I think they should look, I don't think hostages should be happening at all. But from just a strategic, if I'm not going to look at it from a humane perspective of thinking that people shouldn't be held hostage, looking at it from a strategy perspective, I do think that it would be in Hamas's best interest to just release the hostages. Just release all the hostages and then let Israel continue to show who they really are. Because one of the narratives that's been circulating around is, well, if Hamas would just release the hostages, then the bombardment would stop. That is what we've been hearing over the last few months whenever people point out the death and destruction, the women, the children who are being buried alive under the rubble. People say, well, all Hamas has to do is release the hostages. That has never actually been a reality. The IDF admits that. That's why they say a 2-month pause in exchange for all of the hostages. They're not saying a just a ceasefire and ending this round of the conflict. They're not saying that at all. They're saying, well, we'll give you 2 months of a break, and then we're back at it after you give us back all the hostages. So Hamas knows that that's not a reality, that giving back the hostages won't end the bombardment. IDF has admitted releasing all the hostages will not end the bombardment. It's just public sentiment kind of has this idea in their mind. So the best thing to happen, because the court of public opinion is, I think, very powerful, is for Hamas to release all of these hostages and then show the world what the IDF is really about. And they just will continue their ethnic cleansing campaign. You're not going to stop it anyway, because they clearly are willing to kill their own hostages. They don't care. They're one thing I'll give it to the IDF, they're at least consistent. They kill anything that moves. They don't care if it's a Palestinian or a hostage or an Israeli hostage. They're just killing anybody that moves. They don't seem to prioritize their people over other people. It's just the Hannibal directive. Kill everything to reach our objective. It's just a very aggressive, forceful military strategy. So Hamas knows this, but I think what they should do is release the hostages and show the world what the IDF is really made of, and make the public opinion turn on them even more than it already has by saying, look, they released the hostages and now they have the moral footing, and IDF is still doing what the IDF is doing. That is my personal opinion. However, the IDF might be more willing to now negotiate further now that it was announced that 21 IDF soldiers were killed in action yesterday. Here's a tweet from the IDF saying 21 IDF soldiers were killed in action yesterday, Monday, as they continued to operate against Hamas centers of gravity in southern Gaza. Based on the information available at this stage, the troops were operating in eastern Gaza near Khan Yunis. The forces were operating to remove structures and terrorist infrastructure that posed a threat to the security of Israeli communities. During the activity to remove the threat, at approximately 1600 IST time, it appears that an RPG missile was fired by Hamas terrorists toward a tank, which was securing the force. Now, simultaneously, there was an explosion, which resulted in the collapse of two-story structures, while many troops were either inside or nearby. Following the explosion, commanders operating in the field, along with the rescue teams that arrived at the scene, have been executing a very complex operation to evacuate the casualties and locate the injured. So let me just break this down to what exactly happened. Is that these IDF soldiers were planting explosives inside of 2 different buildings that they were going to blow up. That right there, a lot of questions around that. Why were they planting explosives to take down these 2 buildings? If they were able to go inside of these buildings, then clearly Hamas was not inside them. They've said that the reason why they're tearing down infrastructure, the reason why they're targeting buildings is because they're Hamas headquarters, right? They're trying to go after Hamas. But when they're able to go inside of a building and actually plant explosives to take the building down, which they've done on numerous occasions, there are no combatants in those buildings. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do this. So they're placing explosives throughout these two different 2-story buildings. And as they were doing this, a member of Hamas, a militant, fired an RPG, one single RPG, at a tank that then caused a chain reaction where it triggered the explosives to go off early. And the explosives took down the 2 buildings that the IDF was intending to take down. It just took them down with it. And that's how they all died. That's what happened. Which is horrible and this war needs to end. It's horrible and tragic. There's a lot of people very angry that these IDF soldiers were killed. They're angry at Hamas for killing them. I don't know what you expect when you march into a war zone as a member of the military. If you're going to go and invade somebody else's land and try to occupy it, you're putting your life at risk. You're allowing your country to put your life at risk. And you should really ask your country if it's really, truly worth it, if you're doing the right thing. And in this case, I sympathize that the Israelis need to have security in the region, but I also think that the Palestinians need to have land and free and equal rights. They need to have freedom. They cannot continue to live like this, and there has to be a solution. And that solution is either the Palestinians get a true state with true sovereignty, not the fake sovereignty that they've tried to offer in the past of, oh yeah, we'll give you this land, but we control the air, the water, the wells, the telecommunications, the ports, the airspace, the security. You can't have a military. We're even going to come in and patrol your area every so often and shoot at you sometimes, but you're a sovereign nation. That's not a sovereign nation. They either need to be given sovereignty or they need to just open up the borders and say everybody lives here on the Holy Land, Muslims and Jews, and bring back the Christians while you're at it. The Holy Land is for all three. And say it's Canaan, the land of Canaan, or call it the Holy Land or whatever you want to call it, and give everybody equal rights. They got one of the two options. But this option of continuing to oppress people or ethnically cleanse them, not good. Also want to point, this is a terrible story. An American teen was killed in the West Bank by a settler and an IDF soldier, an off-duty IDF soldier. This, I cannot believe, is not headline news for every single outlet out there, but NBC News did at least put this out. A Louisiana teen traveled to the West Bank to learn about his roots, and he was shot dead. So Tawfiq Jabbar, he was born and raised in Louisiana. His parents are from Palestine. He's 17 years old. He went back to Palestine to see his homeland, to see his roots, and which many Palestinians do. And apparently he came across a very violent settler, and the settler shot at the teen, the American teen, and then an off-duty IDF soldier joined in, who was in uniform, joined in and continued shooting at the teen and others that were with him. Now, the IDF has admitted this, saying, we know that a civilian and an off-duty IDF soldier shot and killed these people, but they're investigating to see if the civilian was one of the aggressive settlers, which likely was, who's been causing a lot of death and destruction in the West Bank. So the fighting is not just going on in Gaza; it's happening also in the West Bank. The settlers have taken advantage of all of this, and they're being very aggressive towards the Palestinian people. So an American teen was shot and killed in the West Bank. I mean, this is somebody born and raised in the United States. Goes back there, and now they're saying, well, he was throwing rocks. And the dad said, so what, even if he was? He says, I don't know if he was. I don't think he was. But even if he was, so what? What does a rock do to you when you're hundreds of meters away? You're 100 meters away, and you're throwing a rock that doesn't even hit a tank or a truck or anybody. And, what's happened is these Palestinians want the Israelis off their land. The West Bank is technically theirs. Gaza is technically theirs. And they've got IDF and settlers all over the West Bank who are not supposed to be there. And so there is violent tension between the groups. Sometimes the Palestinians get violent and say, get off my land. You're not supposed to be here. You've invaded. You have to get off. And they're met with very, very heavy retaliation for that. So if they throw a rock, they get shot in the head. And that's what happened to the 17-year-old kid. He was shot in the head. Just absolutely terrible, terrible stuff going on in the West Bank and in Gaza. All right, guys. Let me tell you guys about Truly Office. Not only is it a complete office suite with documents, spreadsheets, slides, mail, and more, it's a one-time purchase, lifetime license, and most importantly, it's privacy focused. So this means no ads, no tracking, 100% control over your documents and workspace. With Truly Office, you get an easy-to-use, cost-effective tool that steers clear of the typical tech industry drama. It's about efficiency and respecting the user. So Truly Office seamlessly integrates into any tech stack built for individuals and small businesses at an extremely cost-effective price. So check out trulyoffice.com/rumble right now. And for our Rumble audience, they're offering an incredible 30% off. So this is an unbeatable deal. Don't wait around. Just go to trulyoffice.com/rumble and use the code rumble30 at checkout to claim your discount. The prices for a complete office suite with a lifetime license and privacy start at just $24.99. So very cost-effective office suite and incredibly private. So Truly Office, your privacy-first workspace alternative. Say no to subscriptions and say yes to lifetime deals. trulyoffice.com/rumble, code rumble30 at checkout. Well, do you remember the recent Columbia University protest that was gassed last week? Students were saying that they were sprayed with some sort of chemical or some sort of gas. Well, it turns out that the people responsible for the gassing were former IDF soldiers using military-grade gas on students. That is what has now come out, is that these were two IDF soldiers who posed as part of the protest. They wore the keffiyehs, they held signs, They pretended to be part of the protest, and then they unleashed an IDF used. It's a substance that is used by the IDF, and they used it on these students. Now, what it does is it causes a stench, a very, very terrible stench. People say it smells like rotting corpses, and it makes the person, it lasts on them for days and days, and it could cause you to get sick and throw up all the time and burn your eyes. You know, there's some actual true health ramifications that could happen with this. Now, it's skunk is what it's called. It's a malodorant crowd control weapon that is used by the IDF. It was first deployed in 2008 against Palestinian protesters on the West Bank. And the military-grade chemical leaves a strong, lingering smell on its targets, which have been likened to that of a rotting corpse from a stagnant sewer. This is according to the World Socialist website. They had put this story out because this is also not making mainstream news right now, that these former IDF soldiers. So Colombia's come out with a statement, and they're saying that they are investigating this. They have basically confirmed that these two students were former IDF students IDF soldiers that have come back to study general studies at Columbia University. They're saying that they're looking into this as being a serious hate crime. I don't know why this isn't being. I don't find this a very I don't like the terrorism moniker or the idea that everybody's looked at as a terrorist, and they've definitely abused terrorism, domestic terrorism. Everybody's a terrorist. But in this situation, I think it would classify as terrorism and not a hate crime. I mean, if these are IDF soldiers who have Israeli citizenship, they probably also have American citizenship, but they have Israeli citizenship, and they deploy this gas on these protesters during an event, obviously for a political agenda, right? I mean, their agenda is political and nationalistic. But not for the nation of America, for the nation of Israel instead. I would think that this would be potentially a terrorist attack and not just a hate crime, but I don't know the exact legality of it. Now, this protest was put together by Jewish Voice for Peace and also by the SJP, which is, what does that one stand for? That is the Students for Justice in Palestine. Those two groups have actually been banned. This is how crazy things are, right? So these two groups have been banned, so they're not allowed to protest. They've been banned only from Columbia, but a bunch of other of the Ivy League universities have banned them from protesting. They say it's because these students are not following the protocol for protests. But nonetheless, these groups have figured out ways around the banning. They now have kind of coalesced with other groups, and the other groups then file for the protest permits, and then they get together and protest under those groups' banners. But yeah, they were out protesting. They got gassed using an IDF gas by former IDF soldiers. It's being investigated as a hate crime. Why is it not terrorism? Why is it not making headline news everywhere? If Palestinian students did this to Jewish groups, gassing them, former Hamas militants gas Jewish students protesting for Israel's right to exist, whatever, that would make headline news everywhere, but this one doesn't. Beats me. All right, let's move on with the show. I got one last one that I want to show you. Thomas Massie has come out with this showcasing that the COVID vaccine was an incentive program. A lot of doctors basically were pushing the COVID vaccine on their patients, and they were getting paid for it. Here's what Thomas Massie has to say. Your primary care provider was bribed to get you to take the jab. Oh, but Congressman Massie, these were incentive payments, not bribes. As always, follow the money. And he shows this, look at this. This is from Anthem, Blue Cross and Blue Shield Medicaid. Getting vaccinated against COVID-19, one of the best and safest ways people can protect themselves and their families against the virus. As participating practice in the COVID-19 provider vaccine incentive program, we recognize your hard work by offering incentives for helping patients make the choice to become vaccinated. So they basically bribed your doctor to strong-arm you to get vaccinated with the COVID vaccine. Eligibility, the COVID-19 vaccine provider incentive program is open to you if you are a participating Kentucky primary care provider with an Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield Medicaid panel size of 25 or more members. All Anthem members identified as receiving COVID-19 vaccination services are included in the methodology. Vaccine results will be determined by a COVID-19 vaccine claim or by confirmation from the Kentucky Vaccine Registry. The results will be calculated for the 2-week periods of September 1st, 2021 will be calculated for 2 time periods, September 1st of 2021 and also December 31st of 2021. And how you could qualify for a bonus. This is so unethical. To get your doctor to promote a drug. I mean, this is what the problem with the pharmaceutical industry, right? They send those really attractive women to the doctor's offices to say, try my new drug, it's Viagra, right? And then the doctors, and we give you these incentive programs and prescribe our drug, prescribe our pills, and we'll incentivize you and give you all these perks and bonuses and trips and all this stuff that they shouldn't really be giving. So this is extremely unethical. It's a big, huge problem in the pharmaceutical industry. And now even insurance providers were pushing it during the COVID-19 pandemic. On top of, who knows maybe the big pharma companies incentivized this insurance company. Maybe they got incentivized themselves by Pfizer or Moderna. But if 30% of your Anthem members are vaccinated, you get a $20 bonus per vaccinated member. 40% of your population, then you get $45 bonus per vaccinated member. If you get 50% of your people vaccinated, then $70 bonus per vaccinated member. If you get 60% of your members vaccinated, then $100 per vaccinated member. And if you get 75% of your people vaccinated, then you get $125 per vaccinated member. So they incentivize the doctors in order to push the jabs. It wasn't about your health. It wasn't about whether or not this was good for you. It was about the doctor making some dollars. And we just wanted to make some bucks. So we saw a lot of doctors' offices during the pandemic say, you can't come into our office unless you're vaccinated. Otherwise, we're just going to do telehealth. They figured out ways to make it difficult for you to come in and get a checkup or get whatever it is you need, because if you're not going to be vaccinated, then you need to wear a mask, you need to show proof of vaccine. They did all these things in order to coerce people into the vaccine, including pay off your doctor. And this is just one example from Kentucky because Thomas Massie, who's a Kentucky rep, was able to put this out there. But I'm sure this was going on in every single state. So these now we're familiar with the incentive programs, right? We were all incentivized. They tried to get us hamburgers for the vaccine, or they did lotteries for the vaccine. They did all of these kind of incentives. If you remember this one from California, Vax for the Win, California's vaccine incentive program. Get vaccinated, get rewarded. The You Call the Shot California $50 card program. So that ended January 7th of 2022, but you get $50 if you would just go and get the free jab. Free jab, you get $50. Now that's you being incentivized. That's one thing that's already unethical as it is to try to coerce people into vaccination by using monetary boosts, which it could be worse. There could be worse. One way they try to coerce us and incentivize us by saying you can't go anywhere unless you get vaccinated. You have to show your vaccine card if you just want to be a part of society. So these are highly unethical. It's extremely unethical that they paid off doctors. Doctors should be looking out for our health, not for their pocketbook, not for bonuses as they coerce us. But, we trust our doctors. So we go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, I think you need to get vaccinated. And that's probably why they pushed it this way, because their hamburger promos weren't really working. People weren't going for that. And then when then they said, well, people trust their doctors. If their doctor tells them to get it, they said that they'll get it. So let's go and incentivize the doctors. That's how they did it. I want to show you this. This was put out by Harvard Medical School. This is about incentivizing people to get vaccinated, whether or not it actually works. So they wanted to know. They said multiple states, including Ohio, West Virginia, and Minnesota, are offering sizable cash prizes through lotteries to incentivize uptake of the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine. This has raised questions about the efficacy and ethics of vaccine incentive programs. So they're looking at, do these incentive programs work? And they looked at past times that they incentivized people. And they said in 2015, the CDC Community Preventative Services Task Force conducted a systemic review to evaluate the impact of incentive reward programs on vaccination in children and adults. 7 studies, 4 of them from the United States, were included in the review. Okay, so they did a review period from 1980 to 2012, looking at times that people were incentivized to get vaccinated and whether or not those incentives worked. They said studies showed vaccination rates increased by a median of 8%. So it's not very high. 8% when incentive rewards were included. So that's kind of good news. It's kind of comforting to know that people aren't going to just, oh, whatever with my health, jab me with whatever because you're giving me a prize. That only 8% of people say, well, all right, fine, I'll do it now. 2 study arms that assessed the effectiveness of incentive rewards alone showed similar changes in vaccination rates, so about 8.5 to 9% uptake more after people were incentivized. And they said that incentive rewards, here's what they offered people, included government payments, so like $208 and childcare assistance, lottery prizes like a $50 grocery voucher, gift cards like $10 for baby products, and food vouchers. Wow, those incentives are, that's kind of, I mean, just think about this. So childcare assistance, groceries, baby products, food vouchers. Those are the types of incentives they gave poor people, telling poor people, get the jab, whatever the jab is from these time periods, and we're going to help you out because you're poor and desperate. Unethical. Based on 4 studies, the median intervention, but only 8% fell for it. Only 8%. Okay, fine. I'm poor. I'm broke. You want to give me baby products? I need them. I'll take the jab. Based on 4 studies, the median intervention cost per person per year was $372. 3 estimates for the cost per additional vaccinated person ranged from $248 to $2,447 or whatever. But anyway, they say that these data suggest that even small incentives can be effective this is where it gets insane. So this study, trying to decide whether or not COVID vaccine incentives would be good, they conclude, yeah, it works. They say this data suggests that even small incentives can be effective in increasing vaccination rates, and the impact can be substantial when such incentives are provided as part of benefits within health plans. Oh, so we'll put it in benefits with health plans. So they're saying, this is why they're pushing these incentives, because 8% of people fell for it. So they're saying, yeah, it's effective. 8% they think is effective. I wonder how effective they were when the doctors started pushing it. It's one thing to offer you a grocery card or baby products. It's another thing to incentivize your doctor with $150 per person once they hit a certain target, a certain percentage target. And then that doctor sits you down and says, as your doctor, I think you should get this. That's a scandal. That's a scam is what that is. Those doctors, that's not the way medicine should be practiced. I don't think any of us agree with that. This is a scandal. Glad that Thomas Massey is exposing this. I know that many of us knew that there was a lot of these kind of payouts. There was a lot of payouts for saying that patients in your hospital were COVID patients rather than being admitted for something else like a broken arm or being hit by a car. And then they'd say, well, they're COVID patients, and so they'd get more money from the government. There was all kinds of scandals going on. Those were the least of it. But a doctor, somebody you trust, your medical professional who's supposed to be looking at things from a health perspective, being incentivized to push you into a vaccine. That's criminal, in my opinion. That is criminal. All right, guys, we're going to end this show on that criminal note. I know it's criminal that I'm ending the show, but I got to go. So thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate you being here. We will be back again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you guys so much for watching. Would love to hear from you. You can email me, kim@kimiverson.com. I love hearing from you, your thoughts, your opinions. If you've got guest ideas, topic ideas, or you just want to say hi, send me an email, kim@kimiverson.com. Otherwise, guys, see you tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Have a great day. Bye, guys.